Hello, this is Rafa. Welcome to another page in my homesteading diary. Do you see that I am wearing short sleeves, and just a week or so ago, this weather tried to half kill us with freezing temperatures? And today I'm in short sleeves, and I'm not a hot-natured person. I carry a jacket in my car at all times because sometimes I need a jacket just to walk around in grocery stores. So the fact that I'm in short sleeves outside tells you the weather is beautiful. Hello, hi, welcome back. Today's topic is compost tea. So what is compost tea? Basically, it is when you add decomposing items to water and use it to create a water-soluble fertilizer. So, compost tea is becoming probably my favorite way to compost. I have a compost bin, but it probably won't be ready until the spring. It's too full, it's at capacity right now, and until it decomposes some more and creates some more space, then I had to find alternative ways of dealing with my scraps and items that I was using to amend my soil. So, I do like to do in-ground composting where you dig a trench or a hole next to your crops or plants or trees, and then you add your scraps and everything to that, cover it over and let it naturally break down and become incorporated with the soil. I love doing composting that way. Composting tea is another favorite way for me because it's virtually effortless. Anaerobic compost is when the water is not getting any movement at all. It's just sitting still. Aerobic, think exercise. Woo! Get your heart pumping, oxygen flowing, oxygen flowing, oxygen flowing. That's aerobic. Anaerobic is couch potato. Okay, you're just sitting there doing nothing. Anaerobic. Aerobic compost is when you are doing something to aerate the water that you are putting the decomposing material in. So you might add a water pump to it, or you might add bubbling stones like what you see in fish tanks, or you might stir it periodically to get the oxygen going. And the theory behind that is that the oxygen will feed the bacteria that's in the water, which will be beneficial. It will help the bacteria to multiply. However, studies have shown that if you have anaerobic compost tea, it has the same bacterial levels as that which has been aerated. So you really don't even need to add that extra step, that extra hassle. Because if you have additional equipment to deal with, you have to clean the hoses and those water pumps, and you have to degunk it from time to time. And who's looking for more work? I'm not. I've read and seen videos, I've read literature that says that there's no added benefit to your garden using the compost tea, the various concoctions that people have. And I don't know, that just seems questionable to me, because if you have compost that's very beneficial for your soil and your plants, and you're using the same item, just adding it to the water, then where did those nutrients go? Where did those bacteria go? Where did the bacteria go? So it seems to me that although the compost that you might have from a compost bin or a compost pile is more concentrated, If you're adding it to water, of course it's going to be diluted, but it's the same water you would be using to water your vegetables and crops with anyway. So if you give it a little extra boost with nutrients, I think that's what the average gardener is using the compost tea for. No one is using the compost tea thinking it's a substitute for solid compost. Most people are using it as a light fertilizer, one that will not burn your crops. A lot of Asian countries have been using compost tea for centuries on end. And the way they do it is they just add whatever is biodegradable to the water and they let it naturally break down and ferment. That's the method that I prefer. Some people have a special concoction that they use when they do their compost tea. They'll take worm castings, which is basically worm excrement or poop, and then they will also add some maple syrup, and the maple syrup helps feed the bacteria that's breaking down, and it makes it multiply exponentially. Anytime you add sugar to anything, it's going to attract activity. Sometimes good activity, sometimes bad activity. For example, if you are struggling with some type of cancer, or if you have a cold of some sort and you add sugar to your body, the bad bacteria or the bad cells are going to latch onto it. They're going to be happy and grow. Well, if you are doing the compost tea and you add molasses to it, the bacteria that's present in the decomposing material is going to grow. However, as soon as you add it to the soil, the byproduct of the compost tea, as soon as you add it to the soil, that growth comes to a stop and dies off. So you don't really even need to add the sugar to it. Just add things. This is my personal opinion now. Just add things that will break down to the water, and then use that water to fertilize your vegetables. Now, if you have a very nutrient-rich soil that you have put a lot of compost on, or really worked a lot of compost into it, or dressed it well with compost, you're probably going to say you didn't see any results when you added the compost tea to it. And that's true, because once the nutrient level is at a certain point, it's going to plateau. It's not going to be increased by anything that you do. So if you're already starting out with a good base, all you're doing at that point is helping your plants to continue to thrive. Whether you think compost tea works or it's a myth, at any rate, it's not hurting anything, and that's something everyone can agree on. All you're doing at the end of the day is watering your crops. I like the idea that it's water soluble and that it also feeds my crops through the leaves. So it makes everything readily available to my crops, regardless of how large or how small the quantity of nutrients is at the end of the day. It's feeding it, and that's always a plus. As long as it's not killing it, hey, it's not a bad thing. So let's take a look at what I have going on. Here's my 45-gallon trash can. And what is inside? Okay, now if you use fish emulsion, then the smell coming from this container should not be disconcerting to you. You can probably smell this through this video. What I add to my compost is any type of scraps that I come across. If I am cleaning up my garden beds, the leaves that I take off, I put in here, and I just let it steep in this rainwater. and that is fine. It just does its thing, breaking down and decomposing. This looks like a murky mess, and it is. But so far my plants seem to be loving it, and that's all I'm concerned about. Today I'm adding scraps that I've been saving in my kitchen. I would normally put this in my rotating compost bin, but like I mentioned earlier, it's full. What am I putting in here today? I have broccoli rabe, eggshells, banana peels, onion, carrots, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, just everything that I've been cooking with that used to go in my trash can before I started gardening now becomes compost. High on the list of things to add is comfrey leaves. I'll be adding that in the spring once the one I'm growing matures. It's very high in nitrogen and it's great for warding off disease. I also have coffee grounds and tea bags in here. In my previous compost video, I mentioned that you can go to your local coffee cafe shop and get free used coffee grounds. So don't forget that. What else will I add to this from time to time? I might add some Epsom salt, maybe a cupful of Epsom salt. I might add half a gallon of fish emulsion to it. I might add a bag of worm castings to it. Stir it all up. The more you add in there that's organic and that's going to break down, it's just going to strengthen the value of the water that is produced. There's no limit to what you can add. I would, however, not add any compost that is made from animal byproducts. I would not add any cow manure. I would not add any chicken manure. I would not add anything that personally I feel might lead to some kind of E. coli problem. Okay, so I would stay away from all feces like that. Worm castings, of course, that's okay. I'm going to let that sit for a few days and just steep. But it's available for use right now. The longer it sits, of course, the more nutrients will leach out into the water and be available for the plants. However, the base of it is rainwater, which is already very healthy for the plants in and of itself. Speaking of steeping, some people will take pantyhose or stockings and fill that with the worm castings or with whatever they're using to as decomposing material, and they'll put that in the water so that they don't have to filter the water when they go to use it. That's especially helpful if you're going to be adding the water to your vegetation using some kind of a sprayer that you don't want to get clogged. I just use a watering can that I dip in there. Most of the time there's not too much floating around. It's all settled to the bottom. And so I just submerge the watering can and then go on about my business of watering the plants. If you have a weak stomach, this is probably not the option for you because the smell is very offensive. If your stomach is weak, just skip past this. You might want to skip past fish emulsion as well, but this is probably 10 times worse than fish emulsion. Definitely not for the faint of heart. Gardening can be a little more expensive than what people set out gardening think it's going to be. However, Compost Tea is one expense that you can greatly eliminate, and that is a mild fertilizer for your vegetables because it's virtually free. You're dealing with rainwater and you're dealing with things that you are already using. So if you're looking for something to supplement your watering cycle with, consider this as an option. Anyways, that's all for today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you've gotten a little something out of this video. If you have, please consider subscribing if you have not already. Share it with a friend who might be into gardening as well or thinking about it. And hit that notification button so that you'll know when I upload new videos. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up. And by all means, leave a comment. Let me know what's going on in your garden. What kind of composting do you like to use? This channel promotes the goodness in life. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. And above all, prosper and be in good health.